The engine hummed, a steady rhythm against the silence of the Florida night. Streetlights became scarce, replaced by the faint glow of distant houses. Brittany Steyer gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles pale in the dim light. Beside her, Heather shifted uncomfortably, her gaze darting between the darkened road and the passing shadows. The weight of unspoken tension settled between them, a palpable presence in the close confines of the car. They were nearing the trailer, each mile amplifying the unease that had begun to gnaw at their courage. The air, thick with humidity and the scent of impending rain, seemed to crackle with an unknown energy. It was supposed to be a simple errand, a quick exchange to pick up Brittany's children. But as the headlights illuminated the dilapidated trailer, a wave of foreboding washed over them. The trailer park was eerily quiet, the usual sounds of children playing and families settling in for the night replaced by an unnerving stillness. The silence was broken only by the chirping of crickets and the distant barking of a dog. As Brittany pulled into the driveway, her headlights swept across a scene that sent a shiver down her spine. Empty beer cans littered the yard, glinting ominously in the pale moonlight. Strangers, their faces obscured by shadows, loitered near the entrance, their presence both unexpected and unwelcome. The sight sent a jolt of adrenaline through Brittany's veins, a primal instinct warning her of danger. Heather, her eyes wide with apprehension, reached out and squeezed Brittany's arm. "Are you sure you want to do this?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the engine. "Something doesn't feel right." Brittany, her gaze fixed on the strangers, hesitated. She had faced countless challenges in her life, endured heartaches that would have broken a lesser woman. But something about this night, about the oppressive silence and the menacing figures lurking in the shadows, filled her with a sense of dread she couldn't shake. Yet, a part of her, the part that had always clung to hope, refused to give in to fear. She had to be strong for her children. With a deep breath, she turned to Heather, forcing a reassuring smile onto her lips. "It's fine," she said, her voice betraying a tremor she couldn't quite conceal. "I'll just be a minute." Heather, her gaze lingering on the strangers, wasn't convinced. There was a predatory air about them, a sense of coiled tension that set her teeth on edge. She knew Brittany was trying to be brave, but she couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap. The darkness seemed to press in on them, amplifying the fear that thrummed in her veins. The air inside the car grew thick with unspoken anxieties, the weight of the unknown pressing down on them like a physical burden. Years of friendship had given Heather an almost uncanny ability to read Brittany's emotions. She saw the fear that flickered behind Brittany's forced smile, the way her hand trembled as she reached for the door handle. Heather knew, with a certainty that sent a chill down her spine, that something was terribly wrong. The night air, heavy with the scent of rain and the metallic tang of fear, seemed to whisper a warning. "Please, Britt," Heather pleaded, her voice thick with emotion. "Don't go in there alone. Let me come with you." But Brittany, her jaw set in a determined line, shook her head. She wouldn't involve Heather in this, wouldn't risk her friend's safety. "It's okay," she insisted, her voice firm despite the tremor in her chest. "I'll be right back." And with a final reassuring squeeze of Heather's hand, she stepped out of the car, the door closing behind her with a heavy thud that seemed to echo in the stillness. Heather watched as Brittany made her way towards the trailer, her silhouette illuminated by the porch light. She moved with a forced confidence, her shoulders squared, her head held high. But Heather could sense her fear, could feel it radiating from her like heat from a fire. The strangers parted slightly as Brittany approached, their faces still obscured by shadows. Heather strained to hear what they were saying, but their voices were low, murmurs in the night. The sun-drenched streets of Stuart, Florida, witnessed the arrival of Brittany Steyer on June 10, 1989. Born into a world of warmth and palm trees, she was a ray of sunshine from the start. Her early years were a tapestry woven with the love of her parents, Betsy and Joe, and the companionship of her older sister, Christy. Life in their Port St. Lucie home was a blend of comfort and chaos. the kind that comes with a close-knit family. Summers were spent splashing in the ocean, building sandcastles that crumbled under the gentle caress of the tide, and sharing secrets under a sky ablaze with stars. Life, however, held its share of shadows. When Brittany was just 5, the foundation of her world shifted. Betsy and Joe, their love story reaching its final chapter, made the painful decision to divorce. Despite the heartache, they remained united in their dedication to their daughters. Brittany, caught in the crosscurrents of their separation, found solace in the unwavering love of both parents. Betsy, a woman of deep faith, had recently founded her own church, a testament to her unwavering spirit. The church became a sanctuary for Brittany, a place where she found comfort in the embrace of community and the rhythm of gospel music. Joe, a hardworking man employed in construction development, instilled in Brittany the values of hard work and perseverance. He taught her the importance of a strong work ethic, of facing challenges head-on, and of never giving up on her dreams. Despite the geographical distance that often separated them, Joe remained a constant presence in Brittany's life, a source of love, guidance, and unwavering support. Life had dealt them a difficult hand, but the Steyer family, bound by invisible threads of love and loyalty, navigated the challenges with grace and resilience. Brittany, growing up amidst the sunshine and shadows of their love, blossomed into a remarkable young woman, carrying within her the strength of her mother's faith and the tenacity of her father's spirit. A Star is Born. Brittany's vibrant childhood and natural charisma. Brittany was a force of nature, a whirlwind of energy and enthusiasm that left an unforgettable mark on everyone she met. Her laughter, infectious and bright, could light up a room, and her smile, warm and genuine, had a way of making those around her feel seen and cherished. She possessed a natural charisma that drew people in, a magnetic personality that made it impossible to ignore her presence. Even as a child, she had a way of captivating an audience, of commanding attention with her infectious energy and undeniable talent. At school, she was a bright spark, excelling in her studies and embracing every opportunity to shine. But it was in the realm of performance where Brittany truly came alive. She was a natural performer, her body moving with an innate grace and rhythm that captivated audiences. She poured her heart and soul into every dance routine she choreographed, every skit she acted in, every note she sang. The stage became her sanctuary, a place where she could shed her inhibitions and embrace the spotlight with unwavering confidence. Beyond her artistic talents, Brittany possessed a heart of gold. She was a devoted friend, always there to lend a listening ear, offer words of encouragement, or simply share a laugh when it was needed most. She had a knack for making those around her feel loved and valued, for seeing the good in everyone she met. Her kindness extended beyond her immediate circle, leading her to volunteer at church camps, where she shared her infectious energy and compassion with underprivileged children. Brittany's life was a testament to the power of living with an open heart, of embracing life's adventures with a contagious zest for life. She was a shining star, radiating warmth and joy wherever she went, leaving an indelible mark on the hearts of all who had the privilege of knowing her. Finding her way young adulthood, work ethic, and a fateful encounter. As Brittany transitioned into adulthood, the world unfolded before her like a tapestry of possibilities. She approached each new experience with the same infectious enthusiasm that had defined her childhood, eager to carve her own path and make her mark on the world. Driven by a strong work ethic instilled in her by her father, she secured a job at a local Winn-Dixie grocery store. It wasn't a glamorous job, but Brittany approached it with her characteristic dedication and cheerfulness, quickly becoming a valued employee. Her warm personality and genuine desire to help others didn't go unnoticed. Customers gravitated towards her checkout line, drawn in by her infectious smile and friendly demeanor. She had a way of brightening even the most mundane errands, transforming a simple trip to the grocery store into a moment of genuine human connection. Her supervisors, recognizing her strong work ethic and natural leadership qualities, quickly promoted her to positions of greater responsibility. It was during this period of her life, amidst the aisles of Winn-Dixie, that Brittany's path crossed with that of Edward June McNeil Harris Jr. June, a 28-year-old employee at Burger King, was a man shrouded in a veil of complexity. He carried with him the weight of past relationships and the responsibility of 5 children from previous unions. To many who knew him, he was an enigma, a man whose charm often masked a darker side. Brittany, however, saw something different in him. Perhaps it was his undeniable charisma, the way his eyes seemed to twinkle when he smiled, or the vulnerability he sometimes allowed to peek through his carefully constructed facade. Whatever it was, Brittany found herself drawn to him, her heart whispering promises of love and happiness. It was a connection that would forever alter the course of her life, leading her down a path fraught with both joy and unimaginable heartbreak. Red flags and blind love, a mother's faith, a friend's warning, and Brittany's choice. News of Brittany's budding romance with June was met with a mixture of excitement and apprehension by those who loved her most. Her family, while supportive of her happiness, couldn't shake a nagging sense of unease about the man who had captured her heart. Betsy, guided by her intuition and her deep faith, couldn't help but see the red flags that fluttered around June like warning signs in the wind. She shared her concerns with Brittany, urging her to proceed with caution, to truly get to know the man behind the charming facade. Heather, Brittany's closest confidant, shared Betsy's apprehension. Having known Brittany since childhood, she had an almost uncanny ability to read her friend's heart. She saw the way Brittany's eyes lit up when she spoke of June, the way she seemed to blossom under his attention. But Heather also sensed a vulnerability in Brittany, a desire to be loved and cherished that sometimes blinded her to potential dangers. Heather's husband, a police officer, had crossed paths with June on a professional level. His assessment of June was swift and unwavering. Stay away. He urged Heather to warn Brittany to paint a clear picture of the man she was getting involved with. Armed with love and concern, Heather confronted Brittany, sharing her fears and urging her to reconsider her relationship with June. She presented the facts, the whispers of June's past, the concerns shared by those who knew him best. But Brittany, blinded by love and fueled by an unwavering belief in her ability to see the good in everyone, refused to listen. She saw in June a man misunderstood, a diamond in the rough who simply needed the right woman to polish him to his full potential. It was a classic tale of love and blind faith, of a heart yearning for connection and a spirit determined to see the best in others. Brittany, caught in the throes of first love, chose to follow her heart, unaware of the treacherous path that lay ahead. The year 2016 dawned with a mix of trepidation and excitement for Brittany. Despite the warnings from her family and Heather, she had taken a leap of faith, her heart whispering promises of a future with June. Their relationship, a whirlwind of intense emotions and whispered declarations of love, had swept her off her feet, blinding her to the storm clouds that gathered on the horizon. As weeks turned into months, a new reality began to take shape within her. She was pregnant. The news of her pregnancy filled Brittany with a mix of joy and fear. The joy was palpable, a radiant glow that emanated from her very being. She had always longed to be a mother, to pour her boundless love and energy into nurturing a life. But the fear, a gnawing anxiety that lurked in the shadows of her happiness, was impossible to ignore. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was gambling with her future, that the man she loved might not be the father she yearned for him to be. Her worst fears were realized when, just 5 months into her pregnancy, she went into premature labor. The pain was unbearable, a searing agony that ripped through her body and soul. She clung to the hope that her baby, a little girl she had already named Jade, would defy the odds, would fight her way into the world and into her arms. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. Jade, her tiny heart unable to withstand the challenges of a premature birth, slipped away from Brittany, leaving behind a void that seemed to swallow her whole. June, the man who had vowed to stand by her side, was nowhere to be found during her darkest hour. As Brittany lay in a hospital bed, her body racked with pain and her heart shattered into a million pieces, he was lost in a haze of his own making. Christy, her sister and pillar of strength, searched frantically for June, desperate to find him, to shake him awake from his self-imposed oblivion, but he was gone, vanished into thin air, leaving Brittany to face the unimaginable alone. The loss of Jade left an unhealing wound in Brittany's heart, a constant ache that cast a shadow over everything she did. The pain was compounded by June's absence during her most vulnerable moment, a betrayal that cut deep, severing the fragile threads of trust she had so desperately clung to. Seeking solace and a fresh start, Brittany made the difficult decision to move back to Bradenton, to the familiar comfort of her father's love and support. She hoped that distance, both physical and emotional, would help her heal, would dull the sharp edges of her grief. But June, like a shadow she couldn't shake, found ways to weave himself back into her life. He bombarded her with calls and messages, his voice a mixture of remorse and desperation. He promised to change, to be the man she needed him to be, to honor the memory of their daughter by becoming a better father, a better partner. Brittany, her heart still aching for the love they had shared, found herself drawn back into his orbit. Despite the pain he had caused, she couldn't erase the hope that flickered within her, the belief that he could be redeemed, that their love story wasn't over. Weekends were spent making the long drive back to Port St. Lucie, to June, and the life she had left behind. She told herself it was for the best, that maintaining a connection with June was important for her emotional well-being, for her ability to move on. But deep down, she knew she was clinging to a hope that was slowly slipping away, that she was pouring her energy into a relationship that offered little in return. Heather, watching her friend's downward spiral with growing concern, tried to intervene. She reminded Brittany of June's absence during her miscarriage, of the empty promises he had made, of the pattern of behavior that was becoming impossible to ignore. But Brittany, her heart shielded by a wall of denial and hope, refused to listen. She was determined to make the relationship work, to prove everyone wrong, to rewrite the ending to their love story. By 2017, Brittany's resolve to create a life apart from June had crumbled. Persuaded by his promises of change and blinded by her own longing for a happy ending, she allowed him to move in with her in Bradenton. It felt like a new beginning, a chance to build a future together, to create a stable and loving home for themselves. She found them an apartment, a cozy space filled with the promise of shared dreams and laughter. She helped him secure a job, using her network of contacts to open doors that had long been closed to him. But the illusion of a fresh start was short-lived. June, unable to escape the demons that haunted him, soon reverted to his old ways. His temper, once a simmering pot threatening to boil over, erupted in fits of rage that shook Brittany to her core. The man who had showered her with affection, who had promised her the world, was gone, replaced by a stranger whose eyes held a chilling glint of control and resentment. His violent outbursts weren't confined to the walls of their apartment. At work, his temper flared, leaving a trail of broken relationships and shattered expectations in its wake. Co-workers, witnessing the change in his demeanor, whispered amongst themselves, their concern for Brittany growing with each passing day. They noticed the subtle changes in her, the way her once bright smile seemed strained, the way she flinched at sudden movements, the way her eyes darted nervously around the room, as if searching for an escape route. Brittany, caught in a cycle of abuse that tightened its grip with each passing day, found herself increasingly isolated. She withdrew from friends and family, ashamed of the bruises that marred her skin and the fear that had taken root in her heart. She made excuses for June's behavior, blaming his outbursts on stress, on misunderstandings, on anything but the truth that was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. June was an abuser, and she was trapped. The year 2018 brought with it a mix of joy and terror for Brittany. She was pregnant again, this time carrying a son. The news filled her with a mix of hope and dread, a bittersweet cocktail of emotions that left her reeling. Motherhood, a dream she had cherished since childhood, felt both terrifying and exhilarating. She longed to hold her child in her arms, to shower him with the love and affection she had been so desperate to give to Jade. But the fear, a constant companion that shadowed her every move, whispered warnings she couldn't ignore. Brittany's family, their hearts heavy with concern, watched as she navigated the complexities of her pregnancy. They noticed the bruises that she tried to conceal beneath long sleeves and scarves, the flinches that betrayed her fear, the way her eyes seemed to dim a little more with each passing day. When questioned, she offered up a series of plausible explanations. A clumsy fall, a bump against a cabinet, anything to deflect their concern and maintain the facade of normalcy she had so carefully constructed. Her co-workers, their suspicions growing with each passing day, watched as she transformed from a vibrant and outgoing young woman into a shadow of her former self. They saw the fear in her eyes, the way she jumped at loud noises, the way she seemed to shrink into herself whenever June was near. They wanted to help, to offer her a lifeline out of the darkness that seemed to be closing in around her. But they were met with a wall of silence, a desperate plea for normalcy that broke their hearts. Despite the turmoil that raged within her, Brittany clung to the hope that the birth of her son would change everything. She poured her love and energy into preparing for his arrival, nesting in their small apartment, surrounding herself with baby clothes and toys, desperately clinging to the belief that a child's love could heal the wounds that ran so deep. But even as she cradled her newborn son in her arms, a part of her knew that the nightmare was far from over. On March 2, 2018, Brittany gave birth to a healthy baby boy. She named him Aiden. Holding her son in her arms, she felt a surge of love so powerful it threatened to consume her. For a brief moment, the shadows that had darkened her life seemed to recede, replaced by the radiant glow of new life, of hope rekindled. She poured all her energy into caring for Aiden, finding solace in his innocent smiles and the unconditional love that flowed between them. But June, unable or unwilling to change his ways, remained a volatile presence in their lives. The cycle of abuse, temporarily disrupted by the arrival of their son, resumed with a vengeance. His outbursts became more frequent, more intense, fueled by a toxic mix of jealousy, control, and resentment. Brittany, torn between her love for her children and her growing fear of their father, found herself walking on eggshells, desperately trying to shield them from the worst of his rage. She hid the bruises, the harsh words, the constant tension that permeated their home. She made excuses for June's behavior, telling herself that he was just stressed, that he loved her and the children, that things would eventually get better. But deep down, she knew she was living a lie, that she was trapped in a nightmare of her own making. Just 3 months after Aiden's birth, Brittany discovered she was pregnant again. The news, which should have been a joyous occasion, filled her with a sense of dread. She loved her children, but she was terrified of bringing another life into the volatile world she shared with June. Her family, their hearts breaking for her, urged her to leave him, to seek refuge in their love and support. But Brittany, still clinging to the hope that June could change, that their family could find peace, refused to give up on him. Brittany's daughter, Ava, was born in the fall of 2018. The joy of welcoming a new life into the world was tempered by the ever-present fear that shadowed Brittany's every move. She loved her children fiercely, her heart swelling with each precious smile, each tiny hand that reached for hers, but the weight of her secret, the truth of the abuse she endured behind closed doors, became heavier with each passing day. As Aiden grew, Brittany began to notice disturbing changes in his behavior. He was prone to sudden outbursts of anger, followed by moments of intense clinginess, his little body trembling with a fear he couldn't articulate. He was too young to understand the complexities of his parents' relationship, but he was acutely aware of the tension that permeated their home, the unspoken threat that hung in the air like a suffocating fog. Brittany, her heart breaking for her son, recognized the signs of trauma in his behavior, the unmistakable echoes of her own fear reflected in his eyes. It was a turning point, a moment of clarity that pierced through the fog of denial and despair. She saw in Aiden's pain a reflection of her own, a stark reminder of the cycle of abuse she was perpetuating by staying with June. She had to get out for her children, if not for herself. They deserved a life free from fear, a childhood filled with laughter and love, not the constant threat of violence that had become their reality. The decision to leave June wasn't easy. Fear, deeply ingrained after years of manipulation and control, whispered warnings, urging her to stay silent, to protect her secret at all costs. But a mother's love, fierce and unwavering, drowned out the whispers of fear, replacing them with a steely determination to fight for her children, to offer them the future they deserved. January 31st, 2020, dawned bright and cold in Bradenton. Brittany woke with a sense of purpose that had been absent for far too long. The decision had been made, the plan carefully crafted in the quiet hours before dawn. While June was at work, she packed a bag for herself and her children, filling it with essentials, clothes, diapers, a few cherished toys. She moved with a quiet urgency, her heart pounding in her chest, her every sense on high alert. The drive to Orlando was a blur of adrenaline and fear. Brittany kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see June's truck bearing down on them, his anger a tangible threat that followed them like a storm cloud. But they made it, arriving at Disney World just as the gates opened, the sounds of laughter and the scent of popcorn washing over them like a wave of normalcy. Brittany had told June she was taking the children to visit her sister for a few days, a carefully constructed lie designed to buy her time, to create distance between them. She knew it wouldn't be enough, that he would eventually uncover the truth, but for now, she allowed herself to breathe, to savor the moments of joy on her children's faces as they rode the rides, met their favorite characters, and lost themselves in the magic of Disney. For those few precious days, Brittany allowed herself to believe that she had escaped, that she had broken free from the chains of abuse that had bound her for so long. She watched her children, their faces lit up with laughter and wonder, and felt a surge of hope, a flicker of light in the darkness that had threatened to consume her. The illusion of safety was shattered on the third day of their Disney adventure. Brittany's phone buzzed with an incoming message from June. His words, cold and menacing, sent a chill down her spine. "I know where you are," the message read. "Bring my kids back, now." Panic surged through Brittany, a wave of nausea washing over her. He had found them. The carefully constructed facade of normalcy she had created crumbled around her, leaving her exposed and vulnerable. Over the next few hours, the messages continued, each one more threatening than the last. June's words dripped with anger and resentment, his possessiveness morphing into a terrifying rage that made Brittany's blood run cold. He accused her of kidnapping his children, of turning them against him, of destroying his life. He threatened her, vowed to make her pay for what she had done. Terrified but determined, Brittany contacted the police, reporting June's threats and seeking their protection. They advised her to return to Bradenton, to obtain a restraining order against him, to fight for custody of her children through legal channels. But June, fueled by a toxic mix of anger and desperation, was relentless. He arrived at her father's house, demanding to see his children, his eyes blazing with a fury that made Brittany fear for their safety. He cornered her in the driveway, his hand gripping her arm with a force that made her wince. He pressed a gun into her ribs, his voice low and menacing as he whispered threats against her and her family. Brittany, terrified but resolute, refused to back down. She would not let him intimidate her, would not allow him to take her children. The police arrived, sirens wailing, lights flashing in the night. June was arrested, charged with assault and unlawful possession of a firearm. Brittany, her body trembling with adrenaline and relief, watched as he was led away in handcuffs, his eyes still burning with anger and resentment. Standing on the steps of her father's house, her children safe inside, Brittany felt a strange mix of emotions wash over her. Relief that the immediate danger had passed, fear of the long road that lay ahead, and a profound sadness for the love that had turned into a nightmare. The tires crunched on the gravel driveway, the sound amplified in the stillness of the night. Brittany's hands trembled as she turned off the ignition, the engine's silence replaced by a deafening quiet. Heather, her gaze fixed on the trailer, reached out and squeezed Brittany's hand. "Do you want me to come in with you?" she whispered. Brittany shook her head slowly. "No," she murmured, her voice hoarse with fear. "It's okay. I'll just be a minute." Brittany stepped out of the car, the door closing behind her with a heavy thud. She walked slowly towards the trailer, each step a monumental effort against the tide of fear. She raised her hand to knock, her knuckles rapping lightly against the thin wood of the door. The interior of the trailer was dimly lit, the air thick with the smell of stale cigarette smoke. She stepped inside, her eyes struggling to adjust to the darkness. "June?" she called out, her voice hesitant. June stood in the doorway of the children's bedroom, his back to her, cradling their baby daughter, Ava. Their son Aiden sat on the floor beside him, his eyes wide and watchful. June turned, his face illuminated by the faint glow of the nightlight, his eyes blazing with fury. Before she could speak, he raised his hand, a gun glinting menacingly in the dim light. A deafening roar ripped through the silence, the sound of a gunshot echoing in the confined space of the trailer. Heather reacted instinctively, her body moving with a speed and agility she didn't know she possessed. She scrambled behind the wheel of the van, her hands shaking as she fumbled with the keys. The children, their cries piercing the night, were her priority. She threw the van into reverse, the tires spitting gravel as she backed out of the driveway. She drove blindly, her heart pounding in her chest, the sound of the children's cries a constant reminder of the horror they had just witnessed. Finally, she managed to pull over to the side of the road, her body racked with sobs as she dialed for help. The police arrived within minutes, their sirens a chorus of urgency in the stillness of the night. Heather, wrapped in a blanket, watched as paramedics rushed into the trailer, their faces grim. News of Brittany Steyer's murder spread through the community like wildfire, leaving a trail of shock and disbelief. The brutal nature of the crime sent a chill through the hearts of even the most hardened souls. Friends and family, their voices choked with emotion, gathered at the police cordon, their faces etched with grief. They struggled to comprehend the senselessness of it all, to reconcile the vibrant, loving woman they knew with the tragic end. Heather, her voice trembling, recounted the events of that horrific night, becoming the unwitting spokesperson for a community united in grief. She shared Brittany's story with a rawness and honesty that resonated with audiences across the nation. Candlelight vigils were held in Brittany's honor, the soft glow of flickering flames illuminating the faces of mourners. The outpouring of support was a testament to the impact Brittany had made on those who knew her. As the community grappled with their grief, law enforcement worked tirelessly to piece together the events that led to Brittany's tragic death. June Harris, apprehended shortly after fleeing the scene, remained tight-lipped. The evidence against him was overwhelming, a damning indictment of a man consumed by rage. The gun used in the shooting matched the bullet fragments recovered from Brittany's body. Witnesses came forward recounting instances of June's volatile behavior and history of violence. Text messages retrieved from Brittany's phone painted a chilling picture of a man driven by jealousy and a desire for revenge. On the night of the murder, June had sent Brittany a series of increasingly aggressive text messages demanding that she meet him. When she refused, his rage boiled over, culminating in the act of violence that ended her life. The trial of June Harris was a media spectacle, the courtroom packed with reporters and grieving families. Brittany's family, their faces etched with pain and anger, sat stoically in the front row. Heather, her voice strong despite the weight of her grief, delivered a powerful testimony. Prosecutors presented a compelling case, detailing June's history of violence and the chilling motive behind his crime. The defense struggled to mount a credible defense, their arguments ringing hollow. After weeks of testimony, the jury reached a swift and unanimous verdict, guilty on all counts. June Harris was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Justice, in the eyes of the law, had been served, but for those who loved Brittany, the scars of loss ran deep. Brittany Steyer's story is a stark reminder of the precious fragility of life and the devastating consequences of unchecked rage. She was a woman of remarkable spirit, a beacon of warmth and generosity. She was a devoted mother, her heart overflowing with love for her children. She deserved a life free from fear, a future filled with the simple joys of watching her children grow. But that future, those dreams, were stolen from her in a moment of senseless violence. Brittany's story is not an isolated incident, a tragic anomaly in an otherwise just and compassionate world. It is a stark reminder of the millions who suffer in silence, trapped in cycles of abuse. It is a call to action, a plea for awareness, a reminder that we all have a role to play in breaking the silence. Domestic violence is a silent epidemic that knows no boundaries, affecting people of all ages, races, and backgrounds. It thrives in the shadows, fueled by power imbalances and control issues. Recognizing the warning signs of domestic violence is crucial in breaking the cycle of abuse. It often begins subtly, with controlling behavior and verbal abuse. As the abuse escalates, it can manifest in physical violence, threats, and economic control. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please know that you are not alone. There are resources available to help, organizations dedicated to providing support and a path to safety. Reaching out for help is not a sign of weakness, but a testament to your strength and your right to live a life free from fear. Brittany Steyer's legacy extends far beyond the tragic circumstances of her death. Her story has ignited a firestorm of awareness, sparking conversations about domestic violence, challenging societal norms, and inspiring countless individuals to take action. Her memory lives on in the hearts of those who loved her, a driving force behind their tireless efforts to honor her life by working to prevent similar tragedies from occurring in the future. In the wake of her death, Brittany's family and friends established a foundation in her name, dedicated to raising awareness about domestic violence, providing support to victims, and advocating for legislative changes that protect vulnerable individuals and hold abusers accountable for their actions. They have channeled their grief into action, transforming their pain into a powerful force for change, their voices a chorus of hope and resilience in the face of unimaginable loss. Remembering Brittany Steyer means more than mourning her loss. It means honoring her memory by taking action to prevent future tragedies, by speaking out against all forms of abuse, by supporting organizations that provide a lifeline to those in need, and by creating a world where love, respect, and equality prevail. It means breaking the silence, shining a light on the darkness, and refusing to allow fear to silence the voices of those who need to be heard.